So the first question I want to ask is, how did you get into coaching girls soccer?
Long story. I'll do my best to make it short. I got into coaching girls soccer actually shortly after I got out of high school. I was asked to come on as an assistant coach. I came on, worked for 2.5 years at the high school I graduated from, coaching girls. And then after that, I coached boys for a while after that, but I really missed coaching girls. And I missed that aspect simply because of the way that they play team ball and the way that they listen. So after that, I went back to coaching some girls club leagues here and there. And then I started back coaching in Collier County a couple of years ago when I coached the girls team at Pine Ridge Middle School, where I was teaching at the time. And then this last year, I took over as the head coach at Bear Collier High School.
Awesome. So I know we talked a little bit at CTO, and I guess you were homeschooled. So I was homeschooled as well. And just tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was your experience like? I know for me, I kind of had the normal high school experience because I had classes. I went to prom. I did a lot of different things, like, and I kind of got the whole experience. So like, what was that like for you?
So homeschooling for me was a lot different, I'm sure, probably than it was for you. They've come up with so many good things now and so much more integrative things with homeschooling. For me, I was part of I grew up in Lake Placid, Florida, a real small town here. And so we got together with other homeschoolers in the area once a week. But otherwise, it was pretty much me just doing my work at home. I didn't go anywhere else for classes or anything like that. Everything was done at home. I did get to go to 2 proms. And luckily, my 10th grade year, Governor Bush, I believe it was at the time, signed the law that homeschool students could participate in high school sports. So that's when I was able to finally, I'd been playing soccer my whole life. I just was never able to play in the high school team. But finally, I was able to do it my 10th grade year. But it was a lot of fun. Through my main friend group was through my church. I was very active in my youth group. My junior year, I started going out and actually teaching supporting sessions at FCA at our high school. I would go in every now and then and lead the groups because I was a leader in our youth group. And it eventually led to me later on in life becoming a youth pastor. Okay. But I was active, and that's where I had my main friend group. So, while my high school and middle school career was different probably than most people's, and even different than most homeschool students today, I still wouldn't train it for anything because I still was able to get a lot done. I was able to work a job. I was able to play sports, had a good friend group.
So I guess I want to ask you, what's your favorite Bible verse and how do you apply it to coaching?
So my favorite Bible verse is Romans 8:38. For I'm convinced that nothing can ever separate us from the love of God.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, one of my philosophies in coaching is making sure that my players always understand how much I love them as a player, as a person, and how much I care about their development and who they become as a young lady. I tell them that whenever I'm coaching, and they'll hear it, sometimes I'm out there yelling, but I'm never screaming at them and I'm never angry. I'm always trying to correct them, and they understand that when I'm coaching them, that it's because I want them to achieve greatness. And I know that they can do better, and I'm always trying to push them to that. But at the same time, I always let them know that no matter what happens, whether we win or lose, as long as they're giving it their all and enjoying it, at the end of the day, I'm still going to love them. We're still going to have a great time, and they're still going to grow as a player. And we're going to develop a family atmosphere on the field and in the locker room.
Nice. So what has God been teaching you through coaching?
A few things. I think first off, this weekend at CTO was actually quite eye-opening, and it was a good refresher, because one of the things he's reminding me of is that I need to make sure that I have to win at home before I win on the field. And, this first year that I took on the coaching position, it was a change for everybody, change at school, changed for my players because I coached differently from the last coach. And then it changed for my family. And it took up a lot more time than I thought it would, and a lot more time than I told my wife it would. And she was, while it was difficult, she was gracious. Sometimes I won't sugarcoat it. Sometimes, she was a little rigid on the edges when I would tell her, oh, sweetheart, I'll be home at 5. And then it's 6:30 and she's saying, oh, well, where are you at? And I'm like, oh, I had to do this and this. But it was a reminder to me though. And going through this whole weekend that my wife's there to support me, but I need to communicate. And I need to make sure that I'm making my family more of a priority than I am, soccer. Okay. And, sometimes when I get really excited, I put myself out there and I give too much of myself to my soccer players, or my youth or my students. And it's God's teaching me that I need to make sure I'm giving more of myself to my family and more of myself to him than I am to my players. Because in doing that, I know that I'll fill up more and I know that I will have the ability to be a better coach. So that was one of the biggest things. And then the second thing is just to continue to be humble. I was, I try my absolute best, especially when winning, not to be prideful or arrogant. I've never liked players or coaches that act like that. And I've always tried myself not to be that way. I think that, that one of the best examples that we can set as a coach is to be humble and graceful, both when you're winning and losing. And it was a good lesson for me because I think most of the year, for the most part, I was pretty gracious and pretty humble, and my coaches saw that, and we worked together as a team. And, I even included them, just in our district here. I was voted, soccer coach of the year. And I told them, when I won the award, I said, that's great and all, but we work together as a team. And so just a constant reminder from God every day that it's everyone around me and that it's not me and that it's God's working through me. And he's the reason that I'm able to succeed, and it's making sure that I never lose sight of that because, he's the one who's given me the ability to do this. And I just have to make sure that I stay humble and be gracious to him. So.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess you kind of answered that. I was going to ask you, what was your experience like at CTO, but I think you already kind of answered that. So,
it was good. I can toss in one other thing on my wife's perspective. She actually, asked me, she said, so what do you think about having your players over for dinner this year? Because, in the program, the players had, for the past several years, just because of where our high school is, we do have several athletes whose parents have a lot of money. And so parents would just cater food from Carrabba's for the whole team. But my wife asked me, she said, what about if we started serving dinners here and you had the girls over, which was a big step because, as rough as last year was with me being gone as much as I was for coaching, it was nice that she now wants to be involved a little bit more and wants to get to know my girls. So that was one other thing that came out of CTO. That was really cool.
Nice. So I was going to ask, what are your impressions of FCA? But it sounds like you kind of do both. You do FCA and coaching.
So the first year, like I said, Baron, this was my first year in Baron Collier.
Okay.
And, I was not able to really get down to very many FCA meetings this year at Barron because I'm still trying to adapt to my schedule and to coaching. But I've been active with FCA in the past, with FCA at the middle school that I taught at last. And then also, like I said, growing up, I was very active in FCA. I went every week, even though I wasn't a part of the school. I knew the principal and he let me come in on campus so that way I could attend. So, and I love the ministry of FCA and I loved all of the materials they give and what they encourage students to do and what they encourage coaches to do as well. I love FCA and I love the program they have.
Yeah. So I guess you kind of talked about it a little bit, but yeah, like you said, you're the first, I found, I don't know if you told me that or actually saw it, that you were the first year head coach. So what has that been like? Like, what is this your first ever coaching or you're just your first year at Collier?
It's just my first year being the head coach at Barrett Collier.
Okay.
I've been a head coach at the middle school team I was at for 2 years. And then there were a couple other club programs about 15 years ago. So it's been a while where I was head coach of those teams. But it was a great first year at Barron. As I mentioned, it was a coaching change there. The other coach stepped down. And I came in as a first year teacher there at Barron. They knew my soccer experience, and I was able to come in. And it was a lot of fun. I felt really supported. It was a lot of fun building relationships with the girls. We've got a lot of talent returning, so it was great to build a relationship and start to get them excited and prepared for this upcoming season. And it was a really, really good year. We built a really good staff. We have some great people on staff that have faith backgrounds, some stronger than others, but all in all, we're in alignment. We do prayers. We talk about, our faith openly, to what we're allowed to, unfortunately, public schools, we can only do so much, but being on the field, I'm allowed to share. I get as open as I possibly can. I'm sure I toe the line, but when it comes to sharing my faith, I don't care, I want to share it. But
well, sometimes I think your actions can speak louder than words, like how you act, like you're not like cursing or like going crazy, kind of like some coaches do. So it's like, cause I haven't had coaches quite like that were like super bad or anything, but I had a couple yellers, but I can see like how by your actions, like you can really minister to the kids. So
and that's why I mentioned before, like I tell the girls, like sometimes in the middle of the game, I'll yell at them, but it's typically to yell at them to fix something.
Yeah.
Right? And I tell them, like, anytime I'm over there yelling at you, understand, I don't get angry. I just want you to make sure that you're doing it right, because I know that you can be, you can be better. And they all know that. I never want to yell or be that coach that screams at their players and makes it not fun. That's right. That's just not who I am, and I don't believe that's good coaching. So
right, yeah, because like even the some of the coaches at we had an event with FCA. We did Trench Warrior, and like they would get after the players. They'd be like, "Oh, do it again, like you do it right." But they weren't like being all like they were doing it, but they were doing it in a way where it wasn't like really harsh or what, So I think I know the answer to this, but what is your favorite sport and why?
Definitely be soccer.
Yeah.
I think the reason I love soccer so much, and for many reasons, I played since I was 5, right? Wow. So I played for about 35 years. I stopped when I was 40 to start coaching, but I think for me, the reason why I love it so much is not only is it so much fun to play, but I think it's just a beautiful game. There are so many players and they have so many different strengths. And, when they learn how to play as a team and, one of them knows how to use their head really good. One of them is really good at crossing the ball, kicking it in the air, right. You see a cross and someone, heading it into the goal.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's amazing to see what people can do. I love being able to bring out the best in the athletes, because when they do that and when they put it all together, they see the bigger picture, and it's really cool. So it's also a lot of fun to coach. So I think that's probably one of the reasons I love it so much.
Yeah. Cause I actually played soccer in high school and I was a starter, and I played left D and left wing. One time a soccer ball came in and hit me right on the nose and went in, and it was a goal.
Oh, wow.
And it was a goal, but it was crazy because it was like, everyone was like, "Yeah, Zach, you scored." And I was just like, my nose hurt. I was like happy, but I was like, my nose, it hit my right on the nose. So I was like one of those things, but yeah, so I love to play it. I don't like to watch it that much. So
yeah, I can understand. That's kind of the way I am with baseball. I love playing baseball.
It's not fun to watch.
But I cannot sit there for over 2 hours and just watch a game. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I guess soccer I can. Again, when you get the camera view of the whole field, and especially as a former player or as a coach, you can kind of see where the runs can happen, right? You can see where the ball can go and you can see where a play could develop. So I guess that's why I like it so much, because I get excited and hoping that something will happen. So
nice.
It's a great sport.
Yeah, it is a great sport. So who do you look up to the most? And then I guess who would be your role models?
First I look up to the most is my dad. He is a very strong man of faith. He always showed us what it was like to be a good father, a good husband, and someone who has a strong relationship in Christ, does his daily devotions every day, prays every day, taught me the importance of, even all the small things, praying before meals, being polite, everything like that. It's just, I ended up asking him to be the best man at my wedding just because he's done so much in my life and been such a huge part of who I am and who I've become. And still to this day, just all the stuff he did to raise 4 kids and work on his own and run his own business and to be able to provide for us was just something to look up to. So he's my role model. And then I guess for me, I'm a role model to my sons, my players, and that, as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned, but I'm a youth pastor in town here at a local church. And so I'm a role model to my students in youth group as well. I even consider myself a role model for my students in the classroom. And I just go about that mindset because I want to make sure that at all times, I'm always doing things that not only obviously glorify God, but also are things that other students and other people can look up to and say, it's interesting how, Coach Thayer responds to this or the things that he says, because when they start asking me about my faith, I'm openly allowed to talk about it at school, which is great. So I do everything I can to make sure that they see that there's a different way to respond. There's a better way to respond to things. So.
Wow. Yeah. And then, I guess you kind of talked about it, but how does your faith impact your coaching?
I think for me, I think it's definitely helped for me to have perspective on what the most important part of coaching soccer is. And that's to love on our players, develop them, let them know that they are worth so much more than just their talent and so much more than just a game. And let them know that, win or lose, they are winners, that they are incredible young ladies. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes, and I think that's a big message of the gospel. Sometimes that gets lost today is that people think that they've messed up, they've done this wrong, and therefore they just, they're not worth anything, they're not loved, or I'm too far gone. I can't, no church who's going to want me, I can't do this. And so I think trying to remind them that God's love is for everybody and that we all mess up and that we all mess up again and again, but that if we continue to come back to Christ and, we continue to have a heart that really seeks to change and do our best and to enter into that relationship with Christ, that no matter what happens at the end of the day, as long as we're doing our best for him and giving him our all, he's going to love us. And that's what I want my players to know. So I take that message of the gospel and I try and show them the love that I experience from Christ. And then hopefully from there, they see that and it opens up conversations. So that way I can openly share my faith, get to know what's going on with them in their life and try and make a positive impact. And hopefully at the end of the day, lead them to Christ or give them an opportunity to ask questions. So that way, hopefully they'll get there someday if they're not already there. So.
Yeah. And then the last question that I have, and then you can just, if you have anything else you want to share, just can you give a brief testimony of how you came to Christ and how that has impacted your life and coaching?
Eric, I first gave my life to Christ when I was 8 years old. I was at a vacation Bible school, and we did a lesson on John 3:16 and God's everlasting love for us. And I had a really cool message taught, and a lot of people, a lot of younger people today may not know what these are, but I learned on a green felt board.
Oh yeah,
and it was a standard felt board with these little characters that they put on there. And I still remember the lesson, but I knew my parents were going to that church for a reason. I saw them bring their Bibles, and I had, asked questions on it before, and knew it was something that I was supposed to do. But it was at that moment that I realized, this is something that I want to do, that I want to be a part of. So that's when I gave my life to Christ. And by no means have I been the perfect Christian. I don't think there's such thing as a perfect Christian. I've done my absolute best and fallen short many times. But the one thing I've come to know in my faith walk as I learned more about Christ and continue to grow my relationship with him is that without him, I'd be in a lot worse place. That, I've got this wonderful relationship, and I've got this wonderful, I know some people look at it as a responsibility, but I look at it as a gift that I can share with others. And I love knowing that, I can always walk in and talk to people and have an opportunity to share my faith, and that God has done so many great things in my life. And that if they're going through something, hopefully I get an opportunity to share with them, and make a difference in their lives. And that's kind of how I took it into coaching. It's just that I need to make sure that I'm always loving on my players, and that I remind them that no matter what happens, they're always going to be loved by me, that I'm going to hold a grudge. I'm not going to hold anything over them, and that they can do a lot in life, and that I just want to bring out the best of them. And, I feel blessed to be able to do that.
Nice. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts or anything else you want to share. Those are, I pretty much, I don't know if there's anything that you might want to tell somebody in the audience or anything like that.
I mean, the biggest thing I would just say, if I was going to leave with a closing remark, would just be that we spend a lot of our lives sometimes trying to measure up to certain things, right? Whether that's what teachers think we should be as students, or possibly what our parents think we should be, or what society thinks we should be. And at the end of the day, God wants to have a relationship with us. And, I think it's amazing that God understands we fall short of his glory, like that through Christ, we have an opportunity to have that relationship, and that won't have to try and fit into, society's views, or, fit into other people's views of who they think we should be. And that everyone is their own individual, and in Christ, we're all new creations, and we all have an opportunity to shine and do amazing things in life, whether that be on the field or off the field. And that it all starts with that relationship with God. And we got to make sure that he's number one. And if God is number one in our life, the rest will fall into place.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's it for today. But I hope, we'll keep in touch. And thanks for coming on and doing the interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
it was my pleasure. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.